Jen. Look at you.
Hi, Bea. I'm really excited.
Oh, me too. Is this the first in human history?
I'm pretty pumped about this. I can't wait to see how it goes. I see some callers in queue already. I can't wait to talk to them.
I know. Let's do it.
Let's party.
Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen. It's so weird to do that without cheering in the background. I'm Bianca, and with me today is amazing, newest, rotating co-host on AXP, Shannon Q.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Oh, me too.
I haven't been on Talk Heathen in over a year. I'm so excited.
Right, wasn't the last time during Faithless Forum?
Yeah, I was physically in the studio, and this will be the first time I'm the only co-host too, because we rotated through like a pile of YouTubers during that. That was an intense experience.
I remember watching it. I was not down here in Austin yet, so hopefully next time we can replicate that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How have you been? How's your week? How's quarantine treating you?
Good. We're lifting stuff here a little bit because we've only had 3 new cases in the past month here in Nova Scotia because we locked it down. We locked it down. So we're starting, like, we can hang out in groups of 10 outside and stuff like that now. So
nice.
It's a little bit better. A little bit better. Hopefully, knock on wood, it'll stay that way so long as we keep vigilant about social distancing and wearing our masks and do all the things that we've been doing thus far, so long as we stay that course.
Yes. Over here, it was just the 4th of July in Texas, so we're looking at a spike pretty soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, things have been good. Super busy. Next week is going to be busy too. But you know what? I'm really excited to kick back and talk to some callers today.
Yeah, me too.
We do have a couple of announcements. First, as always, the Atheist Community of Austin is a 501c3 nonprofit, which means that we run on donations. So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, consider giving a little bit. Just $1 helps. Keep the lights on, metaphorically and physically, keeps us all mic'd up and ready to go for you. So there's that. Also, if you would like to call in, we do have open lines still, and that number is 512-991-9242. That's at the bottom of the screen there. And then also, we recently integrated a free online option, tiny.cc/callth, and that can be used anywhere in the world. So if you want to call in for free from anywhere in the world, feel free to use that link. Nonprofits is going to be on Discord today at 3, so we'll be wrapping up around 2:30, 2:45 for y'all. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my co-host and dear friend Eric's birthday is this upcoming week, so happy birthday, Eric. Shout out to him in the comments if you want. Other than that, I think I'm ready to get going. How about you?
I am so ready. I can't wait. I was already reading through some of the callers in the queue, and some of them look pretty enticing. I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Who do you want to start with?
The caller 1, I think. That's enticing to me.
Let's talk with Marlon in the Philippines. Hello again, Marlon.
Hi, Marlon.
Hey, B, can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing today?
We hear you.
I've been doing great.
Good.
Nice to talk to you, Shannon. I've actually been watching your videos with G-Man when you were interacting to the drunken peasants and other debates.
Yes, well, those are interesting videos.
Right.
So, Marlon, it says here that you want to prove God through miracles.
I want to talk about my personal experiences this week on how God has shown His presence to me through miracles.
Okay. So, Marlon, before we get started, and we're totally interested. We want to hear. I do want to make sure that we're on the same page, though. Shannon and I don't believe that miracles exist. So are we proving God or are we proving miracles? Because we can't really do both in the same conversation, right? You can't use God to prove miracles and miracles to prove God. So which one do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about convincing us that you experienced a miracle and then see if we can agree on that first? Or do you want to talk about proving God?
I would like to prove the events of miracles in my life because
Okay.
I just I was just having these strange events this past week. I
All
was
right. Tell
sitting
us about it.
down for a meal. I was sitting down for a meal. It was breakfast, and after a heartfelt prayer, I have noticed that my food keeps multiplying, just like what Jesus did in the miracle of the bread and fish. It keeps
Oh,
multiplying.
Your
Because
food was
I
multiplying.
mean, yes, at the crucial moment of my life, because I was
Okay.
about to finish my meal, but I was still hungry. I
Okay.
wasn't filled up yet, but I feel this presence of power from God that He multiplied my rice, my eggs, and my sausages, and all of the
Okay, so you're
food.
saying that can we stop for a sec? Because
yeah.
this is interesting to me.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Yes, sir.
okay, so you're saying that you sat down to breakfast and you had eggs, rice, and sausages, and then you ate all of your
Yes,
food, but
but
you were
I
still
prayed.
hungry. You ate
Yes,
all your
sir.
food, you were still
The food
hungry, and
wasn't.
then you looked on your plate and they came back. How did it multiply?
I keep eating my food, but it wasn't depleting. It was just there. Like the food keeps increasing in a slow rate every time I take a bite.
Okay. Okay. So Marlon, you're saying, if I'm understanding
Well,
correctly, you're saying what? One sec. So, because this is a crucial point, we need to figure out what the miracle is. So you sat down to eat, you were still hungry, you didn't think there was enough on your plate, and you had the experience
yes,
of
sir.
eating and the food on your plate not depleting, not going away, not reducing
Yes, sir.
as you were putting it in your mouth and consuming it.
Yes, sir. I think it was a miracle from God that He intervened to save my life because of my family living in poverty. Just like what happened on to other people that prayed to God and they have their prayers answered.
Okay. So
For
were you,
example,
Marlon, were you very, 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 very hungry at this point? Like, I'm sorry to hear that you live in an impoverished situation, but were you, except like, had you not eaten for days at this point? Do you eat consistently? And I promise I'm going to get to a point here.
I haven't eaten dinner that night and I was saving my food for the morning and that's when I ate breakfast because
So you had
food
saved your
here has
food from the
become
evening before to eat
hard.
and breakfast?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that I'd like to bring to your attention, Marlon. Now,
Okay.
it's possible, even plausible, if you are in the unfortunate situation that you are a very hungry person. And I'm very, very sorry to hear that if that is your situation, and I wish there was something I could do to help, that you potentially could have been in a state where you were suffering from a form of optical illusion, where due to hunger, due to depletion in your neurotransmitter levels, you may have had the experience of perceiving that your plate wasn't depleting when in fact it was actually depleting. And even granting that this is an actual experience you have and it wasn't a perceptual illusion, which I think potentially is likely if you're being truthful about the statement, which I want to grant that you are. There's also
a
the
lot of people
possibility.
from my
Marlon, one
church
moment, please.
also experienced that.
Right. Okay. So what I don't want to invalidate your experience, but you can't transmit an experience that just you had in isolation by yourself when you were in a potentially altered state due to a state of hunger that could have affected your perceptions. You can't transmit that to us in a way that it's compelling. And whether or not you did or didn't experience something like that, I'll grant it to you and believe that you did. That's not evidence to somebody like myself or V that this is something that happened in actuality that can be validated and verified. It's essentially just a claim that you're making regarding an experience you had. And you can't transmit that into our heads so that we can have had the same experience. There was nobody else there to witness it. So can you understand why somebody like V or myself would hear you say that, think about plausible alternative explanations that would make sense given your self-described physical state and the potential state of your cognition at the time, given the lens that you view the world through, and not think to ourselves, okay, well, obviously this is evidence that a miracle did in fact take place.
Well, would you say that a higher power intervened somehow?
No, I wouldn't.
No, there's no, because here we go. Marlon, I understand why you would think that. If this is an experience that you had, and as Shannon said, we're granting it for the duration of this call, because there's no reason to believe that you are lying to us. If this is an experience that you had, I understand why you would draw the association to a higher power, especially a specific one, because that is the environment you are in. That is the way your brain works right now because of the stories you've heard and because of the religion that you believe. So I get why you would think that. But to us, there is no line between strange experience and God, right? To you, there's a line there. And to us, there is no line. It's just, that's weird. That's a strange experience. I'm not sure what to make of it. But there's no obvious association to a higher power. So in order to continue the conversation, what we would have to do is establish that line and establish why you think it's a higher power as opposed to just, as Shannon said, either a state of extreme hunger or even just a weird thing that happened.
Yeah. Perceptual inputs are valuable.
I think it's just like what is said in the Bible, that from prayer, a sincere prayer, God will intervene in crucial moments of one's life. Just like there was this guy, Donald C. Morrison, and he was from Austin, Texas, a World War II veteran. And from an interview, he said that he was actually saved by a Bible from a bullet wound.
Okay, Marlon, it sounds to me like you're drawing associations to affirm. No, Marlon, one sec. Marlon, I can see what you're doing now. Marlon, you're looking for affirmative information to reinforce an existing belief. So you see a story about somebody having a Bible that happened to absorb a bullet, and that's affirmation that God intervenes. Yeah, but look at it this way, Marlon. So let's just say that you weren't a Christian, for example, and there wasn't that story about loaves and fishes, and you had the exact same experience, and you had never heard of the Bible. If you had a different religious belief, you would find a way to affiliate it with that religious belief. You're looking at it through that lens. So when you have this weird perceptual experience, this is now perceived by you as affirmation because you already have a point of reference in your access of memory that, based on what you already believe, you have sort of like a presupposition that these types of things happen. So if you have a weird perceptual experience, you already have that internal scaffolding built in. Like you have that schema state that tells you essentially that you've learned that when these types of perceptual inputs take place, you perceive them through that lens. It's a form of priming. So you already have this established notion that when something that's a weird perceptual experience happens, this is the lens through which I'm going to view it. I'm going to find a reference point externally to affirm it. I'm going to utilize that in order to couch it into my existing belief system. And then I perceive that as evidence. And I can understand how that works mentally. I can see how you would draw those conclusions in your head and that they would seem rational. But I just can't stress enough to you that when you're looking to convince somebody else that it's compelling, we don't have that pre-existing line. We're not couching it in the same scaffolding in our minds because we don't have the pre-existing belief that the loaves and fishes story is a valid one.
Right. Marlon, you said that you've used the term strange events to describe miracles. You said, well, there have been strange events in this last week. And using the example of the Bible blocking the bullet, that would also be a strange event, right?
Yes, because he was a believer in God, right?
Okay, so
why do you think?
So, question for you, Marlon.
Why do you think that? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag. You're fine. So my question for you is, what makes a strange event just a strange event? And what makes a strange event a miracle? Or are all strange events miracles?
I think that all strange events are miracles. If I wasn't
All
a Christian,
strange events are miracles.
I would think that if my food somehow multiplied in front of me while I was hungry, I would think that it was the universe providing me with this food. I would think that it would be a embodiment of the universe.
So
it's the balance of the world.
Okay,
That's what
so
God is
leaving that
in the
aside for a
Bible.
second, because we're going into the universe and we can talk about what God
Okay.
is, if God's the universe or anything like that. But
Okay.
my question for you now that we've established that you think that all strange events are miracles, how do we determine, are these just strange events that benefit people, or are these also harmful strange events, like the COVID-19 virus that's happening right now? The pandemic is a strange event. If by strange we mean unusual, the last time this happened was a century ago. So is the pandemic a miracle? Because it's certainly strange.
Well, I think it would be a prophecy fulfillment from the Bible, as it was stated in the book of Deuteronomy. That's what it was written for.
I have another question for you, Marlon, that would go
consequences
along
of
these
sin.
line of questioning. So when you have any perceptual experience at all, what do you draw on to determine what caused it?
God.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you're only allowing one explanation, and you're viewing everything that happens to you through the lens of that being the only conceivable explanation. And then it would follow in that case that everything that happens to you is evidence supporting that explanation.
Shannon, there was nobody else for my life at that time.
I understand, but I just asked you how you decide what your experience. I asked you how you interpret any and all of your experiences, like what you would use to affirm them, to weigh them, to come to a determination as to what caused them. And you gave me one answer, and the answer you gave me is God, which means that you're already looking for affirmation through all of your experiences.
I think it's an answered prayer from up above, from the heavens.
I absolutely believe that you do think that. I'm not questioning that you think that. I'm not questioning that you think that. It's very clear to me that you think that. You've explicitly stated that that's the lens through which you view the world and interpret anything that you come across and any experience that you're perceiving yourself as having.
It happens.
So it
every
would follow.
time
It makes sense
after
that you
I
would see it as an
pray.
answered prayer. I completely understand. It would make sense that you would pray because you're a religious
Yes,
person.
yes.
But if somebody else had the exact same experience as you, had the experience of the perception that food on their plate was multiplying without utilizing the preconception that God must already be the answer for this experience, they would look at it in a different way. It seems as though you're refusing to look at it as possibly being a different explanation for the experience, and simultaneously saying my experience that I'm only willing to view through one lens is evidence that the lens I'm viewing it through is true.
Are you talking about other religions?
I didn't hear what you just said, Marlon. I'm sorry.
Talking about other religions, I believe.
Are you talking about other religions,
No, I'm
Shannon?
talking about how you validate your experiences. So if you were a Hindu and had given me the exact same explanation, and or if you were a Muslim, or if you were to insert other religion here, and you were saying, I had this experience and it was referential to this passage in the book that I believe, I already view everything that happens to me through the lens of my God existing, thus this experience is evidence of my God existing. You could be any other religion and made the exact same arguments utilizing a different book and a different God, and I would be just as skeptical regarding, and your argument would be just as strong as it is now, because which isn't strong at all. You can really supplant any other religion into your narrative, and you would have an identical argument, and the evidence would still be as weak.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know how to answer that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good
Don't be
question.
sorry.
And that's totally fine. If you don't know how to answer a question,
Sorry.
that doesn't mean that you're
There are times when I'm just gonna say I don't know.
That's
Good.
good. No, that's a valid answer. That's a good answer.
That is a really good answer, Marlon. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna give you some time to think about it. Why don't you think about it and give us a call back in the upcoming weeks, and we'll talk more about this, okay?
Yeah. Thanks, Marlon.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Marlon seems nice.
Yeah, he's called in a couple times with some interesting theories. I believe at one point jellyfish were proof of God. I think that's the same guy. Yeah. So this is not our first conversation.
Not Marlon's first rodeo. Okay, got you.
Not the first rodeo. Ooh, I want to say a jellyfish rodeo now. That sounds like fun. All right, let's talk with Levi.
Okay.
Levi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, can you hear us?
Hey, yes. I want to talk about.
Oh, you're very low.
Now we cannot hear you. It sounds like you took 10 steps away from your phone.
Yes, I want to talk about an experience I had.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but first, before I talk, I know you guys don't believe in God, so I want to be as truth-based as possible.
Perfect.
And
okay.
Yes, and so we want to eliminate everything that doesn't lead us to the truth. You know, like a personal experience and stuff like that. I'm going to try to prove it using other methods. And Google might not be one of them either, because when you Google something, you get different results, right?
Right, you have to know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so quick clarification before we jump in, because I'm curious to hear how you're going to approach this. I just want to make sure we're on the same page about what exactly we're talking about. So you are calling in to talk about a personal experience that you believe leads to God, but you're not going to talk about it in relation to what you experienced, but rather you're going to talk about it from some other way. Am I getting this right?
Yes, and one of those ways is not Google, as you suggested a couple of weeks ago to me, by the way. I'm Nindo, by the way. How you doing? Nindo, I am.
All right, we're dropping you. Sorry, Nindo.
Oh, not a good.
Goodness, every week. Every week. This is you're banned for a reason, my friend.
Oh, wow. Did he use a pseudonym in order to get in, knowing that he's
This is
banned?
the second time in a row. Yeah.
Wow.
Changed his voice too this time. So,
Wow, that is dedication to trolling. That is
okay.
that's
So we're
almost
going to have to add a new,
admirable.
we're going to have to add a new question for the call screeners. Are you an atheist, a theist, or Nindo? All right. Okay, so let's jump right into our next caller then. I believe this is Itto in Arkansas. Let's talk to Itto. If I can click on the link. Come on. I can do this. Hello, Itto, can you hear us?
Hi, V. How are you?
I am doing good. How
Hello?
are you doing? Hi, can you hear us?
Good. Hi, Shannon. Yes. Hi, how are you guys?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so delighted that finally I get to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm delighted too. We're both
Yeah, what can
delighted.
we help you with today?
So I am an atheist. I am totally blind. If it's okay for you guys, I would start with like a brief summary of my background. Where did I come from? So that when we go to the topic, it will be clearer to why I hold the views that I do, and how did they come to become an atheist, and how I told the screen to the callers that I want to talk about disability and Abrahamic religions. I didn't want to pick one in general, basically. And I'm so happy that Shannon, as a psychologist, is here so that she could give her opinion on this. So my name is Itto-AR, and I was born and raised in Morocco in the Atlas Mountains. And Morocco, according to the rules, is a Muslim country. So, but my father was a Jewish descendant, and my mother is an Arab Muslim. So I was raised with my dad's family, like mixed of Jewish and some ancient religions, like praying to the fire and all of that. I was not born blind, and when I was 12, I moved to my mom's family, where I was introduced to Islam, but I never went to school to learn how to read and write. I didn't even know how to count, like from 1 to 3. I didn't even know like my name, because they would call me under like my father's daughter or my mother's daughter. My parents died when I was little, so I suffered a lot. Of course, I gave that credit to God for a while, to Allah. So I started school for the first time at the age of 17. I'm 31, and I started from the 7th grade, and I was homeless for 6 years, and I suffered. And anyone and everyone who is listening, and you guys as well, because it's going to take forever to tell the whole story, could look up my name, Itto-AR, and they will find everything. So I worked so hard, and I graduated with my bachelor degree, and I got my master. I got the Fulbright scholarship, being the first female with disability in what's so-called Arab world, to get the Fulbright. And I came here to the United States, to Arkansas, and I studied master's in journalism. And I ended up seeking asylum under persecution that I was going to experience in Morocco. Like I was hiding under Islam, like I faked it. I was singing it like to myself, but praying 5 times. So the reason I'm calling is like Abrahamic religions and their relation to like disability. Of course, psychologically speaking, it's really hard for a disabled person to, do the, like, accept the fact, like, how society views us as a disabled people. And, like, despite of all my accomplishments, like how I'm familiar a lot with the Quran. I visited Christianity, by the way, for a while. I thought, love everyone, love your neighbor. I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. But when I went deep into it, I'm like, oh, no, that's just another version of whatever. It's the personal God. So, like how disability in Islam, they say, like, you're less human being because you're disabled. That was psychologically damaging to me, especially when I was homeless and, like, I was raped and I had to go through abortions and all of it. When I did my asylum, I became public since last may about the fact that I am an atheist and I don't believe in any God, not because of my suffering or what I had to go through. Maybe that's psychologically, again, maybe that's true, but because of my reading and that I am a Fulbright scholar and I've read a lot, I've done a lot of research. So how, even in the Bible, in the Old Testament, they said that Mary, Aaron's sister, she was disabled for a while. God gave her kind of a break.
Right.
That, hey, if you don't believe in me, I'm going to punish you. So I posted on the Facebook groups for atheists of Austin, and I am hoping that we can bring the topic of disability and how a disabled person can face society, the social norms of the fact that, you're disabled, you're less human being, how to see that as I'm disabled. There's a lot of factors. For me, it was my uncle's wife who blinded me. She threw a sharp utensil into my face and exploded my eye. So, but there are people who are born disabled or people who have, car accidents or something. So I would love to hear what you guys have to say about the Abrahamic religion and how the disabled communities or disabled people are being used on, the religious organizations such as mosques, churches. I don't know much about temples.
Yes. Itto, thank you so much for calling in. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry that you had to go through what you did, but it sounds like you came out the other side so much stronger and so inspiring, honestly. So thank you for sharing that. In regards to disability and religion, I think that it is a way too under discussed topic. I think we should be talking a lot more about how we as a society, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or secular, view disability and how we let that influence how we see the other person. I think that it probably does stem very deeply from religion and from the idea that there is a moral implication to how well you function or how standardly you function. For me, I would only feel comfortable telling you my experience as somebody who was raised a non-denominational Christian. I could not tell you what the Jewish view of this is or expound deeply on the Muslim view of this, but I would be happy to share kind of how disability was talked about in my family as the child of a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the Old Testament, which, is what the Christians call the Jewish Bible, is it did put this onus on kind of the morality of disability, of illness, of any kind of physical or mental struggle. It was usually, at least the stories that I was told and the way that they were interpreted, was either a punishment for something that you had done or a test to test if you were true to the God, right? So Job would be an example of somebody who was tested with various illnesses, various physical disabilities in order to test whether or not he really was God's best believer. Whereas some of the generals and some of the captains of various armies throughout all of the, I don't know exact names, but there have been ones that were cursed, right? with various illnesses because they refused an order from God or because they interpreted God's message in a way that wasn't accurate or something. So there was a lot of moral onus on disability and just pain in general and the inability to function as they thought you should. New Testament, it feels very much like the people who were suffering from some kind of illness or disability were used as props. Right. There wasn't that moral implication as much anymore. There were people who were good people who believed in God, who were still suffering, who were still struggling. And their only purpose was to prove that Jesus was doing miracles. Right. So the woman who was bleeding for 7 years, or the daughter of the Pharisee who died, or the servant of the Roman centurion, they were all people who were suffering and who had an illness. But it wasn't because they were bad. It was because they needed to give Jesus the ability to save them, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how
that's,
I looked at it.
Yeah, but isn't Jesus the same God that was copied and pasted into like being the Son of God? Like, did the God change his mind like from the Old Testament? Because the Quran, which I am very familiar with, in Morocco we were not allowed to have any other religious text besides the Quran. But when I came here to America 3 years ago, I started reading the Bible and listening to you guys, and I've learned a lot. Is basically the Old Testament is just a copy of the Quran. It's just Muhammad was too tired to do the whole thing because it's too big for him. So, yeah.
That's funny. I've never heard that before. First, I want to say thank you for calling. Your experience it is amazing and awe-inspiring, and I'm so sorry you went through all that, and I appreciate you sharing the story, knowing that it's going to reach other people, and I hope people do look you up and can learn from you and your experience. So thank you for that. And I don't know if you're familiar with what I do on my channel that's just called Shannon Q, but one of the things that I tackle quite frequently is something called Christian counseling. And every denomination is going to be different. Every religious person is going to be different in their perceptions towards things, but there's large swaths of people and organizations that look at physical and mental disabilities as generational curses. So they point towards these things as evidence of, sin in a family, for example, that goes all the way back. It's all a method to keep people reliant on a church in order to get support and in order to feel accepted. Because if the message that you're receiving from even your own community is that you are insufficient unless you have us to pray over you, you are going to be less likely to abandon that practice because you become reliant on the other people for emotional, physical support, which is a form of abuse in my mind. It's an absolute form of abuse. You're forming an artificial dependency that's based on lying to people about who they are and how they got that way. And a lot of it has to do, I think, with the fact that when these books were written, people didn't really have as much of an understanding or any understanding really of mental illnesses or the role that the brain plays in your physiology just in general. And they didn't have as much or really any way of understanding what leads to physiological ailments and disabilities. So they viewed it through the lens that it was some sort of divine punishment. And because those books were written at that time and so many people don't contextualize it based on the culture in which it was written and look at it as a divine and inspired word of God, it's not malleable to them. They're not able to comport it to existent reality. And they still see things as soul issues, for example. I really hate it when people say that this is a soul issue because you're removing the assessment of what's happening to you physiologically, and you're not even addressing the actual problem. You're addressing a non-issue while allowing the problem to fester. And it happens far too much, and there's not enough people speaking out about it because religion seems to have this immunity to criticism that when you criticize the religion in its practices that are detrimental, you're seen as somebody who is who's dishonest or who's hateful or who wants to be bigoted against a group. And they shroud themselves in that immunity and are allowed to continue abusive practices. And unfortunately, people like you and many, many others end up being victimized for far too long as a result. So the more voices that we have pointing to it, saying, hey, this is wrong, the better chance we have to save more people. So thank you for adding your voice. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And I hope that all other people with disability would feel courageous to come. It took me 28 years to come out. So I hope that other people would feel more comfortable to come out so that we are disabled, but still we can achieve a lot of things and do what other people can do.
Very
Of course, we
good.
have limits, but that doesn't define us. So
I love that. And talking about it like this, calling in is a great first step to help more people come out.
sure, yeah. Thank you so much, guys. I
Thank
appreciate you. Thanks for the good work. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Have a rest of your day. Wow, inspirational.
Right?
I'm gonna look her
Oh
up.
my goodness. Okay. Let's talk with Jonathan in Arizona. Wants to talk about hell. You up for talking about hell, Shannon?
Yeah, all day. Let's party.
All day.
Let's go.
Talk about hell all day. Come on, Jonathan.
I love your openness, Shannon.
Hi, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Hi, B. I haven't talked to you in a while, and Shannon, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to talk to you, so I'm pretty excited.
Awesome.
So yeah, basically, I've actually spent like the last month thinking about this particular topic of like hell, and so I'm a Christian. I do believe in the biblical hell, eternal suffering, stuff like that. I know other people, your religious Christians or whatever, they believe in annihilationism, stuff like that. But basically, I started thinking about it after hearing Matt talking about it and saying what eternal punishment for a finite crime is not justice. And I was curious, if that's something that either of you agree with or disagree with, or what your view is on if hell does exist. Is that fair?
Right. So I like that you phrased it, if hell exists, because I'm happy to go down this hypothetical with you. But that, of course, doesn't mean that we're granting that it does. For me, I see punishment. I see punishment as a way, and probably a very flawed way, based on our limited understanding of how the brain works, to instigate change, right? To say, hey, you did something that we consider to be bad. We're going to punish you so you don't do that again, so that you change your behavior. With hell, my main problem is that, there are several, but for the purposes of this call, I think it is unjust because it doesn't offer you the option to change, right? It's punishment without a goal. It's punishment for punishment's sake. If you can't learn from a punishment and change your behavior accordingly, then it's just torture, right? And that is granting a lot about punishment itself, right? We could talk about rehabilitation instead and how that might actually be more useful than punishment. But if we're talking about in a standard worldview where, yeah, punishment is good if it motivates change and a positive shift in behavior, cool. That's not what hell does, because it's eternal and you're just stuck there. So there's no use for it. So for me, that's kind of one of those cruxes that makes it difficult to think about hell as just in any way. Shannon, how about you? What do you think?
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts about hell. So for starters,
Shannon, real quick, I do want to hear your point. Do you mind if I address what V said first?
yeah, sure, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead, and then you're gonna have to listen to me, Jonathan. I have so many things to say. You're gonna sit there and listen to me, Jonathan.
I'm sure I won't remember everything both of you said, so I kind of have a one-track mind.
Okay.
Go for it.
So what you said, V, makes a lot of sense, but it makes me wonder, are you for or against the death penalty?
Me personally, I'm against it.
Okay, so are you for life in prison?
Only if it's the last resort and rehabilitation is off the table. But again, that requires a lot of understanding about the structure of our prison system, which is exceedingly problematic, at least here in the U.S. So.
Okay. So basically, there is a point where you agree that punishment is justified if it lasts until, from your perspective, the rest of your life.
Well, there's a difference here, right? The term punishment is different from because we are limited in our abilities, which I'm assuming God is not, the best and most humane thing we can do sometimes is separate somebody from society so that they do not hurt other people anymore. But that doesn't excuse any inhumane treatment of that person while they are separate. So I'm not saying like solitary confinement or bread and water or whatever. I'm just saying, hey, in certain circumstances, because we are limited in our ability to change people, sometimes in very drastic cases, the best option for the most people is to remove a person from society and just put them somewhere where they can live out the rest of their life and not have to interact with people who they might harm. But that's very different from actively punishing them, right? It's not punitive. It's just a measure we need to take in order to safeguard the rest of the population.
Yeah, and
So do you,
Jonathan,
like, something similar to like, yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
yeah, so here's a question that I asked myself when I was a Christian, and I didn't like the answer that I came to during my belief retention attempts. Now, if God and sacrificed Jesus, who is also God, so that he can forgive our sins because he really, 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 really wants to forgive us, and we retain the essence of who we are through the virtue of our souls, not just through our corporeal lives on earth, but through the rest of eternity, either in heaven or hell. And what God really wants to do is forgive us, and we continue to be us, even when we're no longer in our finite form. Why does he rescind the opportunity to forgive us the moment we don't have bodies?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll give that a lot of thought and potentially call back when I have like more time to think about that. But I obviously I wasn't prepared for that question, so I don't want to try and jump into a different topic.
It's kind of my MO.
If that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm. It's not even just about justice at that point. It's about consistency of God in his principles. So, right. Like if you're utilizing hell as if you're seeing hell as a place of justice, right? As a place of justice, first you have to prove that everybody that goes there is somebody who requires some sort of justice be enacted upon them based on their acts. Now, if we view the lens through Christianity, then we're all born sinners. We're all consistently sinners, and we're all sinners up to the point of our death. The only difference is what sends you to hell isn't whether you are or are not a sinner, because we are all sinners. It's whether you do or do not ask God for forgiveness and accept God into your life, depending on the denomination. So that question that I ask you is the only question that really matters, because everybody is on equal footing in regards to whether they are or are not sinners. People are in heaven who are murderers, and people are in hell who are fantastic people, but did not accept God based on the thought process that you're following. So the argument for justice is essentially kind of an illusion, because you're not taking into account the system that puts people either in heaven or in hell. The system is asking for forgiveness and accepting God into your life. And you have to come face to face with the fact that God gives us a finite opportunity, though we exist eternally, to make that choice. And at the only point that God is absolutely apparent to us, he rescinds it. So if he loves us and cares about us and we exist for eternity, why does he only love and care about us enough to forgive us during the most finite portion of our existence if we exist forever? That doesn't seem like love and care. That seems like a game of emotional torture.
Yeah, and again, that's a really good question. I'd love to take some time to think about that and really give it some good thought, because when somebody asks me a question that I've not thought of myself, or is a challenging question to understand, like I don't blurt out the first thing that comes to my head, because that's just I need time to actually consider your question to give a good answer.
I appreciate that answer.
Yeah, so that's something I do want to take some more time to think about and see if I either can come to a conclusion that you have reached, or maybe there's more information I'm not aware of, or just give my own personal take on it. So that's a good question, and I do appreciate it. But again, what I'm doing is trying to draw a parallel from theistic like justice and atheistic justice.
Why are there difference?
I can help you there. There is no atheistic justice. That's not,
There's just justice as a concept.
yeah.
And the end.
And
right.
different interpretations of what justice means within
sure.
different circumstances. But atheists don't.
I think inevitably it's going to come down to subjective opinion. I mean, I think that's pretty much, there's no way around that. So, V, when you're saying like remove that person from society because there's no chance for them to change their ways, but treat them humanely, stuff. Like you said, don't put them in a solitary confinement, bread and water, stuff like that. So, were you suggesting something along the lines of like house arrest, like until they die? Is that what you're talking about?
I have no idea. That might be an option in some cases. In other cases, it might make more sense to put them with other people for whom we need to do similar preventative measures. But again, like I'm a little bit. Are you just interested in V's take? Because I certainly cannot speak for anyone outside of myself. So I'm more than happy to have this conversation, but if it doesn't tie back to a God belief at all, then maybe we could move this over to the Discord or over to email. Unless I'm missing a strand here, and we're gonna wrap around to what you believe and why.
Yeah. So basically, it's. So I asked you the question: do you believe in the death penalty on purpose? And also, do you believe in eternal punishment, on purpose? Because I, as a Christian, I do believe that punishment is eternal in hell, right? And if you're saying that, I'm on board with punishment of you're in prison for the rest of your life until you die. Well, I mean that's eternal punishment too, because when you die, you're dead forever, right? Especially from your perspective of
not eternal punishment.
That has to be true.
Well, it's finite because we're finite.
Right. So I agree. It's not eternal punishment that's like conscious awareness punishment. But it would be if somebody is given the death penalty.
Right. But Jonathan, I understand where you're going with this. I do. I get the parallel that you're drawing here. The issue here, it ties kind of back to what Shannon was saying, which is we only do this because we don't have the ability to change people from the inside, right? We don't have the ability to say, I'm going to make you into a good person now. So sometimes, because we are limited in our abilities, we need to take measures that maybe aren't ideal. I'm not saying that this is an ideal situation or a situation that I necessarily think is the best option. I'm just saying that of the options we have right now as limited beings, this is the most humane way that I've seen to deal with this. But you're drawing a comparison between what we as humans are doing to what God is doing. So I'm not saying that it's moral necessarily. I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm saying this is practically what is most humane. But for God, who has the ability to figure out the perfect way to deal with this, you see where that's a discrepancy. We're equating limited humans to an allegedly all-powerful God, and an all-good God at that. So that's where the comparison breaks apart for me.
Yeah, because I think see what you're trying to do, Jonathan. I think what you're trying to do, if I'm understanding what your tactics going into the dialogue are to say, well, it's not really fair to say that God shouldn't put people in hell when we put people in jail, and it's not really fair to appeal to the fact that it happens for eternity when. If from an atheistic perspective, your life is all you have. So if we put people in jail for the rest of their lives, that's an eternity. I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, how can you, if these two situations are allegorical, which I don't think that they are, then you don't really have a right to argue against hell and say God's not being fair when we as humans are doing this, and if we're being consistent, then that's not fair either. I think that that's what you're trying to get at. But V made a really, really good point there, is that we don't have an all-powerful ability to not even change people's minds, but remove them or give them the opportunity to recant or provide them information that they can change. Sometimes because we are people There are people who just want to hurt each other. Now, agreeing with putting somebody in jail for the rest of their life to protect society is something based on the knowledge that we have available to us right now. I would disagree, actually, that everybody that's in jail for a life sentence should be in jail for a life sentence, and that I think we should work much more strongly towards rehabilitation. And I think a lot of the reason that we have the institutions that we have now is because the sense of justice that we have is entirely tied to retribution and not rehabilitation. And the case, and the reason that is the case is because people look at it through Judeo-Christian lenses and see that as the definition of justice, and it removes humanity from people. So I see what you're trying to do, but the situations aren't analogous because, like V said, not only are we not God, and God is God, if you're being consistent, you have to say that's fair forever for them also. Like, even if they accept God in jail, like if they accept God in jail, should we let them go? Even if they haven't been rehabilitated?
No.
Okay, well, he lets them go. Why shouldn't we? If we're making this an analogy that's allegorical, and you think that they map on one for one, then map them one for one, Jonathan. If you think that that's the case, and as soon as somebody accepts God, they should be forgiven of sins and they should no longer be entitled to a punishment, then the moment they accept God in jail, we should let them go.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you said let them go,
it's not allegorical.
Prison,
they don't map one for one.
So I missed that part where you said, should we let them go because they accept Jesus? I thought you were referring to people in prison. Should we let them in prison because they accept Jesus?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're going to be consistent as you want atheists to be, you have that. Given you thinking that this analogy maps one for one, which is, it seems like what you're pushing, then you would also have to be consistent one for one. And if they ask forgiveness, let's even say that, the atheists see themselves as God, right? I hear that all the time. If we're in charge of the justice system, if they say that they're sorry to us, should we just let them out?
No, because they could be lying. If God exists, he would know if they're lying or not. But
right, we can't. What we're saying that we do not have the abilities that God does, so it's not an analogous situation.
V understands me, Jonathan. So, come on, you can.
If V can get it, anybody.
That's exactly what I meant.
I feel like I'm arguing with two ex-girlfriends here. No, I do understand what you're saying. I totally understand what you said about what. I'm sorry, what?
I said only one of us is a girl.
No, I'm saying I feel like I was arguing with two ex-girlfriends. I was just being facetious. So what you said about why I called Shannon was very, very close to exactly right, but it became not correct when you said therefore we shouldn't think like God says you're forgiven, so we're supposed to forgive you unless you had a prison or anything like that. I'm not saying I'm not representing Christianity saying you're supposed to think this way about morality and punishment and justice the same way that we are. No, not at all. You have every right to question it and just not believe it or have your own opinions of it. I'm not pushing anything on you. I was only asking questions to see if there's a comparison on what I believe as eternal punishment and justice versus what you believe as whatever punishment you believe in, whatever justice you believe in.
You can compare apples to oranges. That doesn't make them the same.
Exactly, and that's what I was calling about is to find out if there's a parallel between like our views on justice and punishment and stuff like that. Again, not trying to like at the end of this call say it, and therefore you should believe in Christianity.
Right.
I actually became an atheist because of the concept of hell. I thought it didn't make sense that an all-living God could send somebody to hell, and I actually stopped believing in religion because of that. So hell is something I think a lot about, and I'm not I'm not by any means a scholar. This is all of my education was done on my own in my own time. I have my own books. I read all the time.
Sure.
I've learned a great deal from the atheist experience and Talk Heathens. So, I'm constantly trying to get more information to see if my views are warranted. If I have good reasons to believe what I do. And then in the last decade, because I became a Christian a decade ago, and before that, I was already watching atheist experience, and ever since then, and my belief in Christianity has only become stronger given the arguments that I've learned over the past. But I could still be wrong about all of it, so that's why I keep an interest and I keep looking into it.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, I think that's a great way to approach it. And I think that continuing to watch, continuing to engage and read and do research is a great and intellectually positive way forward. I'm very curious to hear about how you went from Christian to atheist because of the hell concept and then back to Christian, especially while watching the shows. I feel a little bit like we let you down, Jonathan. But we do have to move on today. However, if you do want to call back, I would love to continue this conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds good. It was nice talking with you.
Yeah, you too, Jonathan. Thank you. Love a good spirited chat about hell. Who doesn't?
Yeah, right? I'm just curious why, like, if hell was the linchpin for him, why he didn't just move to annihilationism.
Right?
Because that's what I did when I was deconverting. I went from the evangelical Western Christianity version of hell to maybe we all just go to heaven and hell is just for Satan, and then I'm like, wait, Satan doesn't exist. Maybe it's just annihilation, and gradually
hell is permanent separation from God. That's where I went.
Right, exactly.
I didn't go full annihilationist, but I went hell is separation from God.
Mm-hmm. And, so I'm definitely curious to hear about what got him back. Before we jump to the next call, I do want to refresh our Patreon page and shout out our top 5 patrons. So let's do that real quick while my computer's thinking.
I'll dance for everyone.
It's thinking. Okay. All right. Shout out to Dingaloo, Jay Friedman, Kamal, Ribau, and Ward Nippling. Thank you so much, you guys. What you give is what keeps us going. And if you would like to be shout out on the show on live air, feel free to donate between now and next week, and you'll have a shot at getting your name on air. Awesome. Shannon, who would you like to talk to next?
Oh, I haven't looked. I was so enthralled with that one. I was still thinking. Oh gosh. There's so many good ones.
I'm calling in specifically to talk to you.
Oh, wow.
Do we want to talk to Steve in Arizona?
Oh yeah, we can do that because we're how much longer are we going? Like half an hour?
We've got about 45 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, for sure. Put him on, please.
Perfect. Awesome. Steve in Arizona, you're on with V and Shannon.
Hi.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Really good.
Going good. What can we help you with?
I love you, Shannon. I've been following you since you kind of started on YouTube. You're awesome.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Okay. Spider. Damn it. That was good. I fucking hate spiders. Sorry, I'm outside gardening. Okay, so quick backstory. I'm a disabled vet. I was living in Phoenix down by the VA. I ended up moving up to Camp Verde because it's kind of like a rural area, and my wife and I were trying to get me away from a catastrophic addiction scene. Mm-hmm. So we moved me up here. Things got really good. We got a house. Her mom helped us. It was awesome. But we're in a very Republican area, and I'm very anti-theist. Like, I think a lot of religion is very, very harmful, especially when you teach it to young kids. Mm-hmm. So when we moved up here, my wife and I talked about it, and it was, okay, we're going to go to a church service. And I was like, cool, I'll go with you guys. I want to participate and see what it's all about and make sure that, my kid's not learning some weird crap. So I went to this Easter service, and it was the most harmful young Earth creationist stuff I've ever heard.
Oh, wow.
Like atheists are horrible. They can't be saved. They're all going to hell. And this was at like an Easter service. And I was like, what the hell? That's not what this is supposed to be about. So my wife is from up here. And one of the things that we have agreed on is that, you know, she can take him to service here and there. She can, you know, whenever she goes, because she doesn't go all the time. So it's like once a month she's going, and I'm like, okay, you know, what's the harm? He can go color at Sunday school. Now she wants to send him to a Bible camp for a week. And it's a young Earth creationist one. And I'm not wanting him to go. I mean, he is very science literate. He loves science. He watches YouTube science stuff all the time. We talk about it. I do astronomy stuff. So he's very invested in learning science. But I don't want it to become polluted with whatever the hell this church is going to teach him.
Right.
And I'm very concerned about his mental and emotional status towards that. And I really don't want to screw up my kid. So I'm wondering, Shannon, from a psych point of view, do you feel that this, I don't even know how to phrase it, like, is this going to be harmful? Do you think that him going every summer is one of these things is more dangerous than not? Because, I mean, you also run the risk of, you know, the pedophilia stuff that goes on within organizations, not just like this, but like Boy Scouts, and where they go away for a week and you hear all those horror stories. Like, I don't know if this is a good idea. And my wife and I are always very open with each other, but this is something really important to her because she went as a kid all the time. But now it's different. It's run by different people. So what do you suggest? Where do you think I should try to steer this? Like,
what does your kid want to do?
Well, of course the kid wants to go and play. And that's generally, you know,
so it was presented to him before the decision was made between the two of you?
I'm sorry, I missed that first part.
So was it presented to him as something that he was going to do before the two of you had a conversation about whether or not you'd agreed upon sending him? Okay. So that adds a degree of complexity from a psychological perspective, because he's not looking at it from the same perspective as you because he's a kid, right? Yeah, so you're right. He does. He wants to go and play.
Right.
So at this point, if this is already something that he's looking forward to, and you know it is safe, like physically safe. I know you mentioned concerns about pedophilia, but certainly if it's a camp that they should be providing background checks. I don't know if it's different. We're in a state where you're in, but I would look into the background checks of the counselors. Anywhere you send your kid, that's something that I would do, is make sure that they have background checks on file. So if you can alleviate that as a concern, I wouldn't take it away from him at this point in time, because you run the risk of it backfiring and him having resentment towards you for keeping him away from the experience, because he's viewing it as an experience, not as an opportunity for indoctrination. And what I would suggest is instead either presenting an alternative camp, if you and your wife can come to that as a decision, so that he still has the experience of going to a camp, or working on arming him to prepare himself to critically analyze the situation that he's in. We're not going to be able to, in any circumstance, avoid our children being exposed to ideas that we perceive as dangerous. The only way to inoculate children from indoctrination is to arm them with reasoning skills. That's what's important. You're not going to be able to 100% keep him out of environments where people are going to attempt to have undue influence on him. You can't protect him from the existence of those environments. You can arm him to be able to watch through those environments. That's the most important thing. Don't damage your relationship with your son over a camp in a summer. Arm him with information going in. You said he likes science. Talk to him about the science. Go look up what they're going to teach at that camp and make him the most annoying kid there. Show him the types of things that he's going to be presented with, and teach him how to validate it. It could be an exercise, if approached correctly, in teaching him how to do source methodology, how to analyze claims. And he can still have the experience with his friends without having to resent you, and without you and your wife having to resent each other. They're difficult. It's easy to just think, I should make sure I don't send him. I should damage my relationship potentially with him and my wife to protect him from this. But protecting him from the world isn't keeping him out of the world. It's arming him with how to deal with it.
Okay. I didn't think about it that way. Huh. I guess a secondary concern to that would be when, like, he went to one last year where it was just you take him for like a couple hours, drop him off, and then come back and get him. And I didn't notice it till the very last day of it, but they had like a production they were putting on, and they had people coming out in lab coats talking about the arc and how it's scientific, and I was like, no, it's not. So like that like threw me off towards that specific church, which is why
you need to have some talks
no
with your wife if he's continuing to put him in those environments. Like the only reason I'm suggesting maybe send him, and I really do think that you guys need to talk about it, is because it's already been presented to him as something that he's excited about, and he's going to have the memory of that being taken from him, attached to you and your relationship, and he doesn't have the reasoning skills right now to understand why that's going to be taken from him. So better communication between you and your wife might be something that's paramount with regards to when these decisions are being made, when they're going to be presented to him. And if they're being presented to, if there's two parents that don't agree on something and one parent tells the child, hey, we're going to go do this thing, even though they know the other parent didn't agree to it, you're essentially weaponizing that child's excitement at that point. And that's something that I would potentially have a conversation with your wife about.
Yeah. I don't think she was
might not have been intentional, but that's the result.
Yeah, it wasn't. She wasn't trying to like undermine me. We're very open with our comment. It's very weird. She was very Christian. Her father very devout, and then in the end of his life, we had him staying with us, and he had become so over atheist that he went to the other side and was watching Ancient Aliens and UFOs. And like my wife flipped out. She was like, I cannot believe that my father, who raised me to, she wrote the Bible as punishment several times, is now not only in your camp, but all the way to the other side.
Oh gosh, yeah. At that point, it just kind of wraps back around again. But
it really did.
Steve, I think that focusing on your kid and his expectation and what he's looking forward to is very important. Like Shannon said, I would ask that maybe a productive way to move this conversation forward might be, hey, I agree. I think he should have a great experience. I think that he should be around other kids and be able to look back on it with fondness. Let's pick a different camp.
Right.
Camp Quest is do you know about Camp Quest?
No.
Camp Quest is a science-based summer camp for kids run by secular humanists. And it's all over the US, and they do all the same kinds of fun things. They go outside, they camp, they do all of the stuff, but they learn about science, like actual science. So maybe a way to maybe get the kid out of the house and give your wife some time to chill, if that's part of the conversation, or make sure that the kid still feels like make sure that the kid still feels like they've got the experience that they were excited about. It might just be the next step might be saying, okay, I agree with you. I want the kid to have this experience. I think that educational camps are great. I don't like this one. Let's pick something else. Hey, here's Camp Quest. This is awesome. Why not try this instead?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
If that alternative is available,
And this is
then you can shift his excitement.
Yeah.
Instead of just robbing him of
and just
the
to
excitement.
clarify, this isn't for this summer. Like we're on lockdown.
Right.
Arizona,
That was going to be the last question I had. It's like for later, right?
You have lots of time to go through camps then. Who needs to make a decision now?
Yeah.
You got some time, and
Yeah.
this will be good. I think talking about the choice of camps is probably the best next step to make sure that the kid still gets what he's looking forward to next year, especially if he's like cooped up in lockdown. Like that's got to be very exciting to think about a potential summer camp later on in next year. But yeah, I think doing everything you can, if that church makes you uncomfortable, if that group makes you uncomfortable, and you say you're open with your wife, talk about it, and say, hey, I'm down for this. Let's pick an alternative.
Yeah, especially since it sounds like his interests don't lie in the church. His interests lie in scientific education. So it sounds like that would be a better alternative for him and maybe something he'd be more excited about. And then you could avoid the indoctrination aspect of it entirely, which would be my goal. It sounds like yours.
Yeah, exactly. Because, adults telling kids something to believe, just my wife can't understand that part. So we have arguments over that all the time. But
it doesn't even need to be an argument about religion. It can be a discussion about what he would enjoy the most.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. I'll have to look up Camp Quest. So, I'll let you guys go on to your next call. Thank you very much for talking to me. And Shannon, I love you. V, you're awesome.
Thanks, Steve.
You're clear as spiders.
Spider
free. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you, Steve.
Bye.
That would be me. I'd call me spider.
Too funny.
Okay. Let's talk with Evan in Ohio.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
Right? Yeah, let's talk about it. Talks about the brain, talks about the soul. Evan, hi, can you hear us?
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? Hi, V. Hi, Shannon.
Hey, Evan.
I called last week. I don't know if you remember me, V.
Yeah, you called about your sister.
I called about. Yeah. So, anyway, I had a lot probably written that they wrote down, but I'm not sure if I still want to talk about everything there because that talk about hell kind of made me realize why I stopped going to church. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be right to just randomly switch up what I said.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to talk about
I was wondering. Well, I just wanted to kind of, I don't know. I think it's kind of bringing up a lot in me that I forgot about. But so I actually a long time ago had a huge fear of hell and would have these horrible nightmares of it, which led me down to using drugs for 10 years, very addictive drugs for 10 years. And I just got clean 3 years ago, and I've been sober for 3 years, and now I'm married and have a kid, and I'm doing great now. And I used to say that was from religion. Religion got me sober, but listening to that made me realize that religion's what sent me down the path of using drugs. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting a little emotional because it was almost like something I completely forgot about. But the whole hell idea was stuck in my head for a long time and scared the living shit out of me. And I was so scared to the point where I started using drugs to kind of hide that fear. And it worked for a while. And then for some reason, AA and a whole bunch of other programs tell you that you need to submit to a higher power and that you need to believe in God in order to get clean, which is, I ended up believing that. And then for this whole time I've been saying, oh, God help me get clean, God help me get sober. And now I'm starting to kind of think maybe I was wrong about that. I don't know.
Well, can I ask?
I feel like, okay. Sorry.
I do
Go
have a
ahead.
question for you if you don't mind answering. And if this is something that you kind of want to go over by yourself, that's fine too. And we can talk about what you called in to ask. But I'm happy to go down this trail with you if this is where you want to go. You say that you're still, if I remember correctly, you believe in a God, but you don't identify as a Christian. Is that how you identify at this point, or are you a Christian still?
Yeah. I still kind of believe in a God. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I would really call it. I don't know if
beliefs?
I'd really call it that. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, sorry. Do you have any hell beliefs now? Do you believe in hell? Is that something that is part of your belief system?
I don't know if I do or not. I don't know. I'm extremely scared of it. I still do have a huge fear of it, and will still sometimes have nightmares about it. But
Okay.
I don't know if I believe it or not. I think what I believe is very weird. I think that if you're a bad person in life and you live a negative life, when you die, you're gonna go towards negativity. So, and this is one of the reasons I was gonna call and talk about the soul too, is because I think that our soul is more like a transmission of energy to be picked up by the brain. And I know that sounds so woo-woo and hippie or whatever you want to call it.
Well, the second you
Like
bring
I'm
energy
sitting in
into
the woods
it,
smoking pot, but
goes in a direction. But I think
yeah.
that's a good way to start this conversation then, because if there is no soul, then we don't have to worry about an afterlife, right? So if we talk about this conversation and maybe thinking about the soul, then maybe you don't have to worry about hell.
I don't think I'm going to ever lose the idea of the soul because of some personal experiences that I've had that I know personal experiences don't mean anything to anyone but me. But those personal experiences, there's no way. I mean, there's no way I'm going to not believe in something after this life. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say never, because I don't know. I mean, I've been going through such a crazy thought processes lately, and I don't know. I don't know what I believe in anymore, actually, now that I'm talking to you and thinking about it.
Yeah, well, never say never. I mean, there's always.
I think I'm more scared.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a little bit scared, and I'm sorry to hear that. I hear myself in that. I hear how I used to be in that. And for what it's worth, I didn't think I wouldn't be scared in the future, and now I'm not. So there is the possibility that if we do continue down this path and you do have some changes of mind, then that fear can, in fact, go away completely. It may not.
Yeah.
But we can certainly have the conversation. I know Shannon was excited about this call because we're talking a little bit about the brain,
the souls,
the soul. So why don't you phrase this as like a tweet length question or statement about the soul and the brain, and then I'll let Shannon have at it.
Wait, what do you mean? I'm sorry.
Let's rephrase what you called in about the brain, the soul, however you see those as intertwined. So give us that brief statement, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I have thought for a long time is like, okay, so I've always thought that there's a physical and that there's a spiritual. So there's but in this, I don't even really know if I should say spiritual. I just think it's something else. And I've always believed that our bodies, our brain, is just picking up signals from somewhere else to give an experience, almost like a video game. You can think of it like a video game, like you jack
like
into
we're avatars.
Kind of like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And so then you experience this life, and it's, gosh, there's so many thoughts in mind that don't really make sense, but if I don't.
Well, let's explore it then. You don't even have to make an argument. Why don't you and I have just a brief conversation about it? And is it okay if I ask you a couple questions? I sense you might be in kind of an exploratory space. Yeah. So what makes you think that our brains are receivers?
So just in a bunch of experiences I've had where I have felt as though I was not even myself anymore, but something. It felt like I was the beginning of existence, if that makes any sense. And I've had these thoughts since I was a child, and it might just be some mental disability, which is what I've always thought for a while.
Right.
But it's just
it doesn't sound like
still
it's
in the back of my
necessarily a
head telling me
disability.
that that's the truth.
So you had an experience that defied your ability to explain the experience. So you it sounds like you kind of came up with an explanation that would explain it to you to your satisfaction, maybe?
Well, I would say it's more of, I know what happened, but there aren't words to explain it. So the way I've always explained it, or explained it to myself, I guess, is that I had been taken by God and shown, this is what everything is. This is where you come from. And here's the end of the road, bud. And then God disappeared, and it was just me. And there was nothing but me. And the realization that thoughts are what created this entire universe. And that's how.
So Evan,
was just
you said that you were in an addictive space at one point in time. Did any of this happen when you were using substances?
No, so that experience that I just told you did not happen when I was using substances. That was a reoccurring dream, and then also it was something I felt since I was a child too, just that idea that I was trying to explain to you since I was a child.
Is it something that has occurred during waking conscious states?
Yes, one of them did, and I can't say that. I can't say it was waking conscious, because it would have been I had no longer been conscious once it started. So
So in each instance where this happened, you were in potentially you were in a dream state.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so you're putting a significant amount of weight on experiences that happen when you're in an unconscious state. You're aware of that, right? And that most of our dreams are a way of us reconciling components of reality that we don't quite understand. That doesn't necessarily make them less impactful. And sometimes reoccurring dreams can be a way that we reconcile difficult questions. They can be a way that we are coping with things that we're grappling with. And it could be our brain's attempt to put together pieces of our perceptions and our thoughts into something that is resembling something cogent. But it doesn't make them any less real. It doesn't mean that you experienced it any less. So, and I understand, I think now that this is a very real and impactful experience for you. Have you contemplated any alternative explanations that you see as plausible?
Yeah.
Did you find any of them to be plausible?
I don't know. Okay. So
did you not want them to be plausible?
No, it's not. It's not that. It's that it's a gnawing. It just keeps coming back. It's a thing that keeps coming back. And I get it. Like I said, I never, ever talked about any of this stuff with anybody. I always kept it in the back of my head because I always thought that it was crazy and it was stupid. And why am I thinking this?
It's not crazy or
especially
stupid.
When I was religious. I'm sorry, what?
It's not crazy or stupid. So I'd love it if you could stop looking at it through that lens, just for your own benefit, because it's common. It's very common. It's absolutely common. Our experiences aren't just our perceptions of the external world, right? Most of our experiences are internal experiences. Most of us have an internal monologue, we have a dialogue, we got to talk to ourselves in our heads. We couch things. We walk through how to problem solve. We do future projection. There's a lot of active states simultaneously taking place cognitively in our brains. And if you're consistent, if you were grappling with something, and it sounds like you grappled with hell, you grappled with addiction, it sounds like you've had a lot of things to deal with, grappled with religion, your brain putting all of those components together into an experience for you during unconscious states that was really impactful to you is just something that makes sense from a neuroscience perspective. Now, it making sense from a neuroscience perspective doesn't mean that it was any less real for you any more than the light coming into my eyes right now doesn't make the experience of me seeing what's in front of me any less real for me. But there is an explanation for it. The experience isn't the explanation. The experience is separate from the explanation, but there is an explanation. So getting back to your soul thing, this seems like to really, really tie to how you perceive who you are in the universe, these unconscious experiences that could potentially have happened because you had a significant amount of stress and existential angst, seems to still be something that you're holding on to the vestiges of, to view your idea of yourself, because I'm assuming you would see your soul as yourself and how you exist in the world. Do you think that there's anything about viewing how you see yourself existing in the universe through that lens that may be causing continuous angst for you, that might be detrimental, that it might be worth exploring alternative explanations?
What exactly do you mean? Do you mean like if I am like holding on to this idea of the soul and that's causing me angst, or?
Yeah, holding on to it sounds like not just simply that you're holding on to the concept of a soul, but that the reason that you're holding on to the concept of the soul sounds like it's because you had this reoccurring unconscious experience that you've put a significant amount of weight on, and that's informing your opinion of who you are in the universe. Like if you see yourself as just kind of an avatar operating through life, and the reason that's receiving transmissions from elsewhere, and the reason that you are seeing it that way is because you've had these unconscious experiences that you haven't really ardently sought an alternative explanation for. I'm concerned that your perception of yourself and who you are is based on something that may have been an angst-induced faulty experience that you're putting is more weight on than is required, and that's going to continue to allow you to view life through a lens of angst.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I have explored plenty of other things of what it is. Like I understand that, which is why I always said I never really talked about this. The only person I talked about this with really was my therapist, who is not religious.
Okay, good.
So that's the only person I talked to about all this, because it was it was just very tied into the whole hell idea, and that so I always have these fears at night if I'm alone that I'm going to be dragged off to hell. Like something's going to come get me and drag me off to hell, which is this very silly fear, but it's very real for me, and so that's why I talk to a therapist still about it all. But
I'm glad. Good.
So she's explained a lot of what you've been talking about, and so I have been trying to explore those ideas, and I've been more comfortable at night now. And
good. I'm glad.
But I do agree that I think I do hold on to this.
Strong experiences with emotional connections are incredibly difficult to let go of, and it's very difficult to explore alternatives, especially when we start to ground things about how we perceive ourselves in reality through the lens of those experiences. That's one of the reasons that PTSD is something that is so important to address and prevalent, because we start to see heavily emotionally charged experiences start to be the lens through which we measure other perceptions. And this is something that maps similarly to me for you. And can you understand why I might be concerned? Because you said before you go to bed, you still have this really strong, I've identified as a rational fear. And you've also identified to me that when you're going into unconscious states, you have an irrational fear that you know you can't get rid of. And then you have these experiences, and you're utilizing these experiences to constitute a perception of yourself that you're still externally defending.
Yeah.
So holding on to that may be something that's preventing you from shirking off this this existential fear, because you're still holding on to a coping mechanism as the way to view your reality.
Yeah, I understand. It's
I'm just concerned for you. I
so
don't mean to
tough
upset you. I sense your voice is dropping.
No,
so I apologize.
No, I get it. I get it.
Okay.
I have very similar talks like this every other Friday. So I do.
I remind lots of people of their
I do
therapists.
think-
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's cool. I really like my therapist. She's a really
Good.
great human being, and then never brought up religion, which is awesome. So I'm the only one that brings it up, and she clearly doesn't put her ideas of religion. I don't even know if she's religious or not, which
that is the way
I
it
think
should be.
a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah. Evan, I want to thank you for calling in. This feels like this is a continual process, and you're asking the right questions, and you're going to therapy with the right kind of therapist, and you're doing a lot of the right things here. So I do want to affirm you in that. And it is going to take time to move out of this. This isn't something that you should have done already, or that you're late for, or that, is wrong in any way. This is just how you're experiencing what you learned as, I'm assuming, as a kid. And so I do want to emphasize that. I also want to ask you a question to kind of leave you with this, and hopefully we will be able to talk again. Are you afraid of other kinds of hells? The hells of other religions, or just the one you were taught?
So this isn't even a hell that I was taught. This was a hell I came up with on all by myself. I know that sounds silly, but I get that question. I'm not scared of the Christian hell at all. This is a hell that I've been hurt with myself, and I'm digging into where that came from with my therapist. So
okay, wonderful. That is good to know.
Figure out how that happened, but
yeah, no, it's good to be able to distinguish between, no, this is not something that I was taught. This is not the religion. This is me, and where did this come from, and why am I thinking about it like this? So digging into that question is going to be very, very important moving forward. And if you have additional thoughts about this or about anything else, we would love to hear from you again.
All right. I have to. I actually have to get out of here. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I appreciate your openness to dialogue, Evan, and
yes,
I echo everything V just said, and I wish you luck on the rest of your self-exploration journey.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you guys have said, and I'll probably listen over this again and kind of try and understand more with what I've said. Hearing myself talk is going to be very weird about this.
Hey, it can help.
It can help. I really do appreciate it.
We appreciate calling, Evan. Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day. All right. We have time for one more call. So let's jump to Michael in Denver, who has been on the line and waiting for quite a while, but is asking a question that is, a good one, and actually reminiscent of another caller who ended up dropping, who asked a very similar thing. So I'm hoping we can wrap the answer to that call and this one into one. So, hi, Michael, how are you doing today?
Thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate it. It's the first time I've been on a show like this, so it's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
So my question was about mythicism, the Jesus myth theory. When I first started, I used to be a Christian, and I got over the young earth creationist perspective because, in part at least, it's in the minority of scholarly opinion, very, very not very well represented. And so the consensus does not seem to reflect that, evolution is false or whatnot. But it seems like the mythicist perspective is similarly not very well represented in academia, but I find it to be pretty compelling. So I guess it just seems like if I want to be consistent, then I should take the secular historicist perspective. But I don't know. I find the very few scholars who are out there pretty compelling, like Richard Carrier, Robert Price.
Right.
Good arguments. So I guess I was just wondering what your thoughts were there.
Yeah, that is a great question. I've got a couple different ways of approaching this, so we'll run through these super quick. The first thing I want to say is I don't think it matters very much whether or not Jesus did exist. I think that if we granted that he did exist, it's a version of Jesus that is not at all comparable to what Christians think that he was. So even if we were to grant that, it still wouldn't get us any closer to proving that Christianity was true. That said, I do think that we need to be careful when comparing scientific consensus with academic consensus, especially in terms of historical analysis, right? Because the way we get to information on either end of those things is very different. We don't necessarily use the same rigorous scientific method that we use to determine whether or not evolution is accurate that we do to apply to historical documents, right? There are different ways to analyze where something came from, how old it is, tracing data back to its first source when we can. So there is a level of scientific approach there, but it's not nearly as rigorous or as tested or as replicable as scientific discoveries are. So I understand that, and it makes sense that you'd say, well, I'm not going to go with a fringe scientific theory because it's not supported by the majority of scientists. So why would I go with a fringe historical theory if it's not supported by the majority of historians? So I get that, and that's a very intellectually honest approach. But we have to keep in mind that there is a difference in terms of the weight of the evidence and what the evidence means and whether or not the evidence has even been evaluated. A lot of the time, if a couple of sources say that a person in an ancient civilization existed, we'll just grant it because, yeah, sure, why not? That person existed. We're not invested in proving whether or not there really was, this ancient person, right? We'll just build on it, assuming that, sure, it's, innocent until proven guilty. They exist until they're proven not to exist, to a certain degree. What mythicists are saying is that's not enough for Jesus. If Jesus is truly somebody who is so historically important, we should be putting more attention and more emphasis on proving or disproving whether or not this character existed. And they have different levels of opinion in terms of whether or not that is actually proven or disproven. So myself, I'm not a mythicist just because it's a positive claim that I don't feel comfortable making because I can't back it up with enough evidence myself. But I don't think that it's as ridiculous as some people say it is. I don't think it's very useful. I think we can very much grant that there could have been a Jesus figure. But again, I don't think that gets us any closer to the quote unquote truth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. One of the first things. Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No problem at all. No, I get it. It's one of the first things that I was thinking about when I started to read. I've read a bit of David Fitzgerald and a little bit of Richard Carrier. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things they always say is, it's not exactly an important question unless you're a Christian, then it is. But it's not like, no skin off my atheist nose if he does exist. So that's not, I don't see it as a matter of primary importance, but I just find it an interesting topic. And, as far as my perspective goes, it makes hard atheism when it comes to Christianity a lot more viable. Because, if you can say he doesn't exist, then you can also say the Christian God also does not probably exist as well. So I just thought it's an interesting way of, how it parallels atheism.
Yeah. So to give you my perspective for whatever it's worth, I wouldn't count myself as somebody who is a historicist. I don't know. What do you call it? Like Jesus historicist?
I don't know if there's a comparable word.
I don't even know if there is a word for it.
Yeah.
Somebody who affirms that Jesus was
non-religious side. It's like a secular historicist.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But I'm not somebody who would just make the positive claim, like V said, that there definitely wasn't a Jesus. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, there was a bunch of apocalyptic preachers roaming around who were likely named Yeshua because that was a common name at the time. So the likelihood that somebody named Jesus who was Jewish was roaming around that area and was an apocalyptic preacher is high enough that I would say that somebody with that name who generally fits that description potentially existed. Now, I really, 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 really don't think that the Jesus as he's depicted in the Bible existed in any sort of tangible way. I think if he did exist, he's been mythicized through the stories in order to push a theological perspective to a really high degree. So I don't even really feel as though I need to go so far as to say that Jesus never existed or that somebody named Jesus who was an apocalyptic preacher who claimed to be the son of God never existed in order to reject that the Jesus that's in the Bible as he's depicted didn't exist as he was depicted in the Bible and that he was mythicized. So I'm not sure if that puts me in line with them, but I think that what you're doing is really important is actually looking into it. A lot of people look at people who talk about historicity, like Richard Carrier, for example, and other people who lay out the history surrounding their perspectives on Jesus and immediately discount them because they're in the minority. And it's really important to actually analyze what they're saying and how they get to the conclusions that they've come to and why other people differ, and to really measure how it's an exercise in measuring how we affirm anything in history and what methodologies that we use to do so. So I enjoy that people are engaging in attempting to establish the historicity of Jesus or to prove that he didn't exist in history, because we're looking at more and better ways to analyze history by just engaging in the exercise. So I don't have a problem with it, really. I don't feel like it needs to be strongly adhered to or strongly fought to be an atheist, though. I think that there's all kinds of myriad other reasons to not be a Christian, personally.
Right. There is no accepted stance on Jesus's historicity in order to be a good atheist.
No.
Well, this is just something that I thought would be, just for me personally, how I get there would be the way I would do it. And I was just curious if it's like something I should look into more, or if it, the fact that it's in such a small minority means maybe I should pursue something else, is what I was asking.
Look into what interests you.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it'll show you how people come to differing perspectives when looking at the same information, and inform you a little bit more on what you see as a good methodology to come to those conclusions, so that when you're presented with information in the future, you can juxtapose the experience onto your approach to new information. Never have enough knowledge.
Oh, of course. Yeah. All right. Well, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for calling in, Michael. It's a good question.
Fun to talk about too.
Yeah. I appreciate you giving me your time. Yeah. Good first call-in show experience for me.
Good. Awesome. Call in again.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
The crew told me not to move, and I've been everywhere, so I can just tell me if the show's coming to an end.
Speaking of the crew, can we get a crew cam up in here?
Woo!
Woo! Crew Kitty. It's the Kitty's crew.
I love Kitty.
I love it.
Good job, guys. Thank you
so much for everything that you do, for making the show run. Shannon, thank you so much for being here today. This was so much fun.
We didn't ruin your show.
No, this was awesome. We need somebody that's well versed in psychology on more often, because a lot of the times I can only empathize and give my experience, but it's really great to have somebody on who has the background and has the ability to talk about things in that way. So thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. It was really a wonderful experience, and I hope the audience enjoyed the experience as much as I did. It was great. Great callers. It was good.
Wonderful. Yeah, we had some amazing callers too today.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get some love rings up in here, and I'm going to see if yes, right hand. All right. 3, 2, whoop. Oh, there you go. Premature love rings. All right. Okay. So First, we changed the script towards the end here a little bit to thank essential workers first and foremost, and to make sure that we are thanking all of the people who are putting their lives on the line. You guys are doing your part to get us through this pandemic, and in a very small way, we are doing ours. We're going to be here every week for you to keep that sense of normalcy and to answer your questions and to be a community for you. But we can only do that because you guys are so amazing and doing your job. Also, everybody else, wear a effing mask. Thank you. For those of you who don't believe, whether or not you have come here from another country in order to be able to profess your atheism safely, whether or not you are working with a therapist to truly be able to unpack all of the trauma that you've been exposed to, whether or not you're working with your family in order to make sure that your kids have the best access to scientific information that they possibly can. We're here for you. This is your community. This is your group. And we are more than happy that you're here. We're happy that you're participating, and we're happy that you're asking questions. And for those of you who do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?